So I am clicking start now.
Okay, I think I've let enough time sufficiently pass there. Good afternoon, everyone. If you are here for the Drones and Civil Air Patrol presentation, you're in the right spot. So let's go ahead and get into this. And by the way, let's get our first nomenclature vernacular issue out of the way. You notice that I said drones. What we really mean are Small Unmanned Aerial Systems, or sUAS for short. So you're going to see references to both sUAS and drones throughout the program. They're synonymous, but I just want to get that right out of the way. This presentation has been repurposed from some other presentations, and that's why you see this bleed over here a little bit. All right, let's get in this, have a little bit of fun. My name is Capt Gary Brown. I am the Unmanned Aerial Systems Officer for Illinois Wing, also a member of the Fox Valley Composite Squadron right here in West Chicago, Illinois. That is my contact information down at the bottom. And if you are interested in this program, whether you're a Civil Air Patrol member or not, let's say you're very intrigued by this presentation and you want to know how you can get started into it. You're not quite sure. Please, by all means, take a screen capture of this slide to get my contact information. Reach out to me by my phone. That's my cell phone, so text messaging is okay. And that's my Civil Air Patrol email. So please make use of that if you're interested in this program after this presentation. Sure, since it's my presentation, I get to have a little bit of bragging rights too, but no, just to give you a little bit of background about me. I'm a private pilot, instrument rated, complex, high performance, all that fun stuff. Currently working on a glider add-on rating where my long-term goals for Civil Air Patrol anyway are to become a certified flight instructor for both gliders and powered aircraft to assist our cadets and senior members, I guess, alike in those initiatives. I'm also a owner-operator of a powered paraglider. You'll see one pictured down at the bottom, and you'd look at it and go, that's a parachute, but no, it's actually parafoil. And yes, it is like a boyhood dream come true where you strap a motor on your back and run into the air on your own 2 feet. I'm also an experimental aircraft builder. I built a Long EZ aircraft, and I currently in the garage have a Cree. If anybody's familiar with that, that's the world's smallest twin engine aircraft. Haven't started it yet, but it's out there waiting for me. I operate a nonprofit company that helps underprivileged and at-risk youth by inspiring them through aviation. And of course, I'm an electronics drone nerd. Professionally, I am a software development manager. I work with microprocessors development. I'm a ham radio operator, so uber geeky. And obviously, as I mentioned before, I am the sUAS officer for Illinois Wing, and I'm a very active mission pilot within Civil Air Patrol. All right, so that out of the way, I'd like to get to know you all. And let's make use of the presentation software that we're using here for everybody. So in order for me to get to know you, I've got a couple questions coming up for you. And if you would smash the ask a question button, which should appear to the right-hand side of your screen. And down at the bottom right, there's a little purple ask a question item in there. Use that to respond to the questions that I'm about to ask you. So let's try to have a little bit of fun with this, and we'll run this interactively as best we can. Again, I'm a newbie at this. At any rate, so for all of you who are on the call today, who owns a drone or an sUAS? And I don't care whether it's a tiny little one that you bought at Walmart, or if it's a super high-end one. No, let me know what you're operating. Or if you haven't, actually purchased a true autonomous sUAS or drone, have you ever had any experience flying what we call traditional RC or radio control aircraft? I'd like to know if you've had any experience of that. Additionally, of those of you who might be a little more far advanced in the program, how many of you have your FAA Part 107 remote pilot certificate, a license to commercially fly remotely piloted aircraft? And then you'll see a picture of one off to the right-hand side. How many of you have that? And in the absence of all of the above, how many of you are interested in acquiring those? You're here for the sUAS presentation. I assume you have an affinity towards this, so you're in the right spot to learn a little bit more. But if you haven't had any of the stuff I've just listed above, I'd like to like to get a sense for who doesn't have that experience, but you're still interested. So I'm seeing a couple comments that are getting vetted through our moderator that says you've got some home builds planning on too. So not surprised, and feel free to continue answering those questions as I move along. Okay, so who of you that have the experience in flying either radio control or an sUAS drone, how many of you are actually logging your flight activities and your flight time? You'll see that little picture on the bottom left where there's an operator's logbook. It's an sUAS logbook for just like fully qualified manned aircraft pilots logging their flight time. You should, and you'll see why a little bit later in this presentation, why it's important that you start logging your time. And you can do it, electronically through the applications that may come with your, commercially available off-the-shelf drone, or if you're logging your flights manually on paper or in a spreadsheet. This is very important if you want to get involved in our program. You need to show proof of recency of experience and total experience. So start doing that if you're not doing it. And then also for those of you that are on the call, how many of you, and I expect these to be probably answers of 0, but you'll see where I'm going here in just a minute. How many of you have your Civil Air Patrol sUAS technician qualification? And similarly, how many of you, if you have that, how many of you have or are going to go on to the Civil Air Patrol Form 5U? And the Form 5U refers to an actual form. It's literally a Form 5U that you fill out when you actually do your flight evaluation to fly sUAS. And does anybody have that on this call? And then lastly, if you have that, you probably have aspirations to go on and become a mission pilot. Have any of you actually completed your Civil Air Patrol Form 91U? Again, the same thing. Form 91U is literally a paper electronic form that we fill out when you become a qualified mission pilot to do search and rescue or imagery using our unmanned aerial systems. And I expect these responses to be fairly low, probably 0, right? Because how many of you even knew that Civil Air Patrol Form 5U or 91Us even existed, or that there was this sUAS technician qualification? But again, I'll bet the fact that all of you are on this call, you've elected by way of this aerospace education conference, whether you're a Civil Air Patrol member or somebody from the outside wondering, sUAS within Civil Air Patrol, I wonder what they're doing there. If you want to learn more about it, you're in the right spot for the presentation. So let's get to it. How do you like all that screen rotation, by the way? A lot of people either say they love this or they start to get sick by it with all the rotating. And by the way, the tool I'm using is called Prezi.com, Prezi.com. So if you want to do this kind of interactive slideshows for yourself, feel free to make use of it. So anyway, here's where we're going to go through the presentations of the Civil Air Patrol program. Here's how you, as a member or a non-member looking in saying, do I want to join Civil Air Patrol and get involved in this unmanned aerial systems program that Civil Air Patrol has to help America and help the community at large? Well, it's getting real. I mean, we literally have regulations, guidance, forms, and publications published on our unmanned aerial systems program. And they're all in draft form right now. I want to stress this. For you seasoned Civil Air Patrol members, you probably want to go to the forms and publications area to go look at the stuff I'm about to present. Don't do it now. Do it after the presentation. They're not in the forms and pubs because they are in draft form only. However, I'll show you a little bit later where you can get the material. So just know that everything I'm presenting today is a draft form, even though we're actually doing the program. We're abiding by the rules as they are currently published in draft form. So just know that they're subject to change. So I mentioned that you can get it today. Again, don't do this now. This is more for you to jot this down now and go visit it after the presentation if you're interested in getting involved in the program. Go to the website, gocivilairpatrol.com. And then on the top menu, you'll see where it's highlighted there or circled. You'll see a drop-down menu for programs. Then go to emergency services. And then you'll see a larger list of topics that you can drill down into. And one of them is the sUAS operations. In that area has everything in a document form that you can download and save to your own folder to peruse it at your own leisure, and more of what I'm going to present today. So make use of that resource if you're interested in this program after the presentation. So the first document I want to show you, and this is not to really give you death by PowerPoint or death by regulation, but I do want to share with a lot of folks because I know we have members in the field right now that are accustomed to flying radio control aircraft with our cadets, flying small unmanned aerial system vehicles right now, potentially for training and getting qualified in our program. And I want you to be aware of some rules and regulations that even though they're in draft form, we're abiding by them right now. So this is not an exhaustive step through of the regulation, but I do want to call out some points, key points for people to be aware of that I want you to walk away with on this. So this is the CAP regulation 70-1U. This is our overarching guidance and regulations on operations for our unmanned systems. So let me zoom in here a little bit to make it a little more readable. And this is calling out that we have pilot qualifications for the first two divisions are recreational pilots, and that would be the pilots that are truly just flying for demonstration purposes, or maybe teaching cadets to fly, you know, a fixed-wing aircraft or a quadcopter, a hexacopter. That would be a sUAS recreational pilot within the Civil Air Patrol program. This is a new requirement, and that is so if you're accustomed to doing those operations currently without any qualifications or check rides, that is now kind of changing within the Civil Air Patrol world with this new regulation. The requirements to do that are first that you must be qualified to operate that sUAS under 14 CFR Part 101, and that's just a federal regulation that covers model aeronautics. And that really just, it's a really short read. It's just a couple paragraphs that says you're going to do it safely, not create a hazard to other aircraft within the national airspace. The next requirement is that you have the appropriate training and endorsements from a Civil Air Patrol sUAS instructor pilot, meaning you've done some preparations for your Form 5U check ride. And that brings us to the third point. To become a recreational, pilot or demo pilot within Civil Air Patrol, you must have completed a Form 5U check ride or check flight by a check airman within the preceding or the last 12 calendar months. So that's an important thing that I wanted to most people in Civil Air Patrol to be aware of, is that from here on out, for any remote control aircraft or sUAS operations within Civil Air Patrol, even if you're just flying with cadets for training and experience or demo, you must complete a Form 5U check ride. And I'll show you what that form looks like and what's involved in getting that. Pretty straightforward. And then the last requirement is if you're a senior member, you must have completed at least your level 1 within CAP. That's the first thing you do within the first week of becoming a member anyway. And then cadet members, you just have to have completed your Curry, your level 1 within the program. And that's for the recreational side of things. The other thing, the other side of the house is the mission pilot. Right, so that's the area that I'm orbiting my mouse around right now. The requirements for it are a little more advanced. And that is, if you look at that first paragraph here, you must be current and qualified in accordance with 14 CFR Part 107 for remote pilot certificates. What does that mean? That means that if you want to be a mission pilot within Civil Air Patrol, meaning you want to fly search and rescue, or you want to do photography work, you want to look for that missing persons using a drone within our program, you absolutely must be a Part 107, commercially certified remote pilot, certificated pilot within the program. So if you don't have that, we're going to have some training sessions that allow you to get that. If you have it, great, now you're one step ahead. And then the other paragraphs go on to very similar to the recreational or the demo pilot, just says that you have to complete a Form 5 with some additional checks to become the mission pilot on the Form 5, and you must complete a Form 91U. Again, that's the requirements to become a mission pilot. And you do that not every 12 months, you do that every 24 calendar months. And then the same requirements for the level 1 completion for both seniors and cadets. And by the way, for you cadets on the call, you notice a couple things here. Nothing precludes you from participating as a recreational pilot within the program or as a mission pilot, with the one caveat being that if you need that Part 107 certificate to become a FAA licensed commercial drone operator or remote pilot, you have to be 16 years old. So that's the one requirement. But at any age group, you can become a demo pilot and fly, obviously, radio control aircraft and sUAS within the program, recreationally or as a demo pilot. Okay, The other thing I want to call out, and again, I apologize, I'm not trying to make this a death by PowerPoint. We get some more exciting stuff coming up down the road here. Every flight, again, whether it's recreational or demo or actual search and rescue or what we call mission pilot work, we do use flight release officers. We have a flight release program. So just like we do with our manned aircraft, we have flight release officers that evaluate what you're about to go do. They review everything, make sure you're current and qualified, make sure it makes sense to go do it. And they're that last check of the safety items before you go do a flight. So just be aware that there's flight release program wrapped around all of the flights as it relates to small unmanned aerial operations within Civil Air Patrol. The next is the qualifications of these airframes. Again, regardless of whether you're going to do it just recreationally or demo pilot or mission pilot, know that you're going to get checked out on the different aircraft types or airframe types. And rotary wing is probably the most common, right? Rotary wings would be your quadcopters, hexacopters, octocopters that you buy off the shelf or you might build. However, I want to caution you, we don't use homebrewed sUAS within Civil Air Patrol outside of aerospace education. So you'll do a Form 5 for every rotary wing airframe that you want to fly. And for the more complex ones like our Instant Eye or the Endurance Quad or the F800 that we have here within Illinois Wing, you'll do a separate checkout on those more advanced rotary wing airframes, okay? Notice, however, that when you get to the complex airframes, ooh, what's this? Aha! There's a requirement for 4 hours PIC, pilot in command, in order to get checked out to fly those more complex airframes. And that's why that on those first slides I was saying, hey, who's logging their time? And this is why, because there's an hours requirement now to get into some of the fly the more complex airframes that we have available to us. Additionally, for those of you who be flying fixed wing aircraft for training with the cadets, or if you're actually going to be flying our fixed wing aircraft, and yes, we do have fixed wing aircraft already available to us right now for search and rescue, or I should say for emergency services missions, you would need, if you're going to be flying those, you would also get checked out and do a Form 5 evaluation, Form 5U, on the fixed wing airframe, okay? So just know that there's some, we're wrapping around some maturity around how we evaluate and make the requirements for people to get qualified in the program. There's some proficiency requirements as a result of that, what I just mentioned. We're trying to do a good job of this. And that is that in order to fly these airframes, you must be qualified by taking that Form 5 check ride, and you do that annually every 12 months. In order to be a mission pilot, you do the Form 91U, meaning you're evaluated on how you do search and rescue every 24 calendar months, and you must have that Part 107 certificate. And then to remain proficient and current as a mission pilot, this is interesting, you must have accumulated a minimum of 0.3 hours as a pilot in command within the last 90 days. So know that if you're a mission pilot, not recreational or not demo, if you're flying this for missions, you must do some recency of experience. Every 90 days, fly 0.3. That's not a lot, right? What is that, 20 minutes? That's typically how long a battery lasts on some of these drones. So if you do that every 90 days, you're keeping yourself current. And the other thing I wanted to call out for the recreational flights for non-mission, again, this is typically for us flying the demos to the public or training cadets to fly RC or drone aircraft. Know that recreational flights may be conducted within Civil Air Patrol as long as you're adhering to that Part 101 requirements, which is just don't cause harm to anybody or manned aircraft within the national airspace. And that you can do no night flight, no non-VFR, no visual flight rules, no beyond line of sight. Those are all prohibited for recreational flights unless you have a very specific reason that Civil Air Patrol has approved and you have a waiver for such. Oops, I went too far. One more section I want to show you here on the other page. All right, eligibility. I've already said the program is open to both senior members and cadets. Those of you who aren't Civil Air Patrol members, when you join, that just means that you'll be available to hop in the program and get started if you want to fly drones with us. In order to take the Form 5, you just have to pass the online written exam for the 70-1U, and that is in Learning Management System right now today. Don't do it. Don't take the test right now. You take it right before your evaluation. You can't have it more than 60 days out before your actual check ride or your evaluation. You must complete a questionnaire or a form 5QU, that's just a questionnaire on your airframe that says, hey, how long does your battery last? What do you do if you have a lost connection? We want you to prove to us that you know how to fly the airframe that you're going to be flying. So you have to complete the questionnaire. And then lastly, of course, you have to show that you've had instructions, from an instructor pilot. You must have the appropriate FAA credentials, the Part 107 requirement, and you must show familiarity with all the CAP regulations. You have to be a current member, and of course you actually have to complete the Form 5 check ride. I'm gonna skip that page. That was a page just on rules and regs and how how we handle people that don't pass their check rides and disqualifications and the like. And that happens. And by the way, I'll talk a little bit later about where I see some of the most common failures on these check rides, because we have been giving them. All right, so sUAS use for recreational flying. Again, this is applicable for those of you who are flying RCs or sUAS for and with our cadets. If you're allowing the cadets to use the buddy box, that dual control system on an RC aircraft, the pilot must remain at the set of the controls at all times. And all recreational flights within CAP must be conducted in accordance with the AMA guidance and applicable FAA regulations. That's at Part 101, which says you just won't cause harm. And if I just zoom in here a little bit, we're not going to go through it right now, but just know that the Academy of Model Aeronautics, that's the AMA that I referenced, they have published safety code that when you're flying recreationally, we want you as Civil Air Patrol to fly by, and you should be doing this anyway, which is, if you just look at the first 3 bullet points on this list, you agree to not fly in a careless and reckless manner. You will not interfere with, and you'll yield to the right of way of other, human, manned aircraft. You'll not, operate the airframe while under the influence. Some basic guidelines. So I'm not going to go through all of them here, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. And you can download that from the AMA. But know that CAP has a requirement that when you're flying recreationally, that you commit to and execute on all of the safety code as published. Next page I want to call out is aircraft use. And by the way, don't worry, we're going through a regulation right now and it's very dry material, but I'm going to get to some other slides that show how we're using these and how you can get involved in it. It gets a little bit more exciting, so stay with me. Aircraft use, these are some unauthorized activities. So heads up, whether you're doing this with cadets or you're doing it for mission work, we do not allow any non-gyro stabilized sUAS within the program except those little kits or any homebrew sUAS that you may be building for aerospace education with the cadets or with the senior members. So what that means is we just don't use any non-gyro stabilized sUAS within the program. And what we mean by that stabilized is it's the GPS sensors and the velocity sensors on it that provide that stabilization. We want you to have that when you're actually doing check rides and mission work within Civil Air Patrol program. Additionally, the other aircraft that you cannot use is any experimental sUAS, meaning if you homebrewed and cobbled together that the sUAS kit that National has available that you can request to train your cadets in building an airframe, or if you're involved in a formal engineering program that builds sUAS, that's all fine and well for our aerospace education program. Just know that you can't use that for a Form 5, and we absolutely cannot use that. Probably, I'm speculating here, probably for liability reasons within the Civil Air Patrol program. So just be aware of that. We're almost done with the regulations, don't worry. A couple other things to be aware of, that as you're flying in our program, just like our manned aircraft, and we do this for safety reasons, there's crew duty limits, right? And they're very similar to the manned aircraft. However, they also differ dramatically. The first similarity is that there's a 14-hour maximum crew duty period, meaning if you join our program, you get qualified and you get called out to do a search and rescue mission for, I don't know, a missing a toddler in the woods. You're going to go take one of our airframes and do a FLIR search for a heat signature of a toddler in the woods. Know that your duty day cannot exceed 14 hours in total duration. Okay. That can be extended 2 hours, if needed, if something unplanned happens, and that's this paragraph that I'm orbiting right now. The next paragraph where it says sUAS pilots shall not be scheduled for more than 6 hours of flight time between rest periods. So in between those 14 hours of total time that you're out in the field, you can not plan more than 6 hours of total flight time during those 14 hours. Okay, that's an interesting restriction. That's a little more restrictive than our manned flights. And then the paragraph beyond that goes a little bit further in the restrictions, and that says that the sUAS pilots shall not be scheduled to fly for more than 2 hours continuously, without at least 1 hour of rest in between the flight periods. So even though you can plan to fly for 6 hours total when you're out in the field on a mission, looking for that toddler, you as the single mission pilot for that sUAS, you can't fly more than 2 hours continuously. And again, they're doing that for safety reasons. So you might land the drone, swap out the next pilot, and you begin your rest period for about an hour, and then you can come back and resume your search for that toddler in that example I gave. And then your crew rest periods, again, the crew rest period doesn't really begin this last paragraph until you're done with all your chores. That includes image processing, uploads, and debriefing with your incident command staff after a mission. So the clock doesn't start for your rest until you're done with all those chores, and then we're asking that you have 8 hours of uninterrupted rest and sleep, including some travel time, and that's where that 10 hours of rest really comes from. Again, just creating awareness on the program. There's a lot more detail in these regulations, but I wanted some rough ideas for all of you, especially cadets that may not have a lot of air crew experience within the program. I want to highlight some requirements that exist out here. Call signs. This is something that those of you who are radio operators, I just want you to be aware of, that we have a very interesting nomenclature in our call signs. And that is that we use the call sign prefix of cicada or triad, unmanned. So whenever you hear the term cicada or triad followed by unmanned, that should be your aha. Oh, there's somebody that's an air crew member for an unmanned systems. That should be your heads up. So you're going to start to hear the stuff on the radio as we get more and more active in this program. Anyway, that's the prefix or preamble, which is cicada, unmanned. Then your wing number, then the configuration of fixed versus rotor wing, and then a group number and airframe number. So a couple examples might be cicada unmanned 23 Romeo 41. And you'll get, again, we're not beyond the scope to go into detail on this. And there may be questions on this a little bit later, but I just wanted you to have an awareness on those call signs. Don't worry, almost done. I mentioned that we have flight releases. I'm not going to go into that right now. I do want to go into some safety operations about clearance. Whenever you're within 3 feet of an obstacle, you should not fly and walk the drone around. So again, what this means is just no flight within 3 feet of an obstacle. Don't do it. Or if you need to, land it, walk it over past the obstacle that they have to get around. No personnel may hand launch the aircraft or recover a rotary wing by hand. There's a couple exceptions to that, and you can hand launch some of our fixed wings, or if you need to do some basic testing or evaluation of the drone. But again, no hands-on launching should really ever be accomplished. And again, you should be wearing protective gear. And what I really want to call out is paragraph 910.5.2, and that is minimum flight visibility. We do not fly our aircraft currently when we're in less than VFR or visual flight rules in the FAA vernacular, and that means nothing less than 3 statute mile visibility, and when the ceilings are less than 1,500 feet above ground level. Additionally, there's some wind restrictions, although these are pretty generous because they almost match our fixed wing aircraft. But fixed wing aircraft, sUAS, we're not flying those in anything greater than 25 knots. And for the rotary wing aircraft, we're not flying those in anything greater than 30 knots. That's pretty generous. And then the last paragraph, we're never flying those airframes in icing conditions. And by the way, I see questions coming in. I'm going to handle those a little bit later. I just want to get through and advance to these slides, make sure we get through the material. Okay, so that was the regulation out of the side. Just wanted to create some awareness in the program because it is new. And I know a lot of you want to get involved in this, and that's great. We want you to. If you want to become a mission pilot, remember, this is not just to fly with cadets or training or demo purposes. If you want to do mission work with us, you have to get that FAA Part 107 certificate. It's not anything that we issue, it's something the FAA issues. The requirements are you must be 16 years old. You have to pass a written examination, or it's actually on a computer, proving aeronautical knowledge. And by the way, we have some upcoming classes on that. And we've hosted some already as well. Some of you have attended those maybe. But if you want to get some training to go out and take that written exam, we will be providing that. So more to come on that. The other requirement is you must be able to speak, read, and write and understand the English language. That is the standard language for aviation around the world. You must be in physical and mental condition to safely operate the airframes. And then the pilot certificate requirements are that you must be easily accessible to the sUAS operations at all times, and your certificate is valid for 2 years. So every 2 years you have to go back through and pass a written knowledge examination again every 2 years. I'm gonna skip that slide. Okay, so let's assume you get your Part 107 certificate under your belt. You know, you do the training with us, or you do there's online training you can take, or you do home study and then go take the exam at an FAA testing center. Well, the next thing you're going to go do is come take a Form 5 check ride, Form 5U. And the Form 5, you can get it off that website that I showed you earlier. This is the form, and it's in paper form. In fact, we typically print it out, go out in the field with you. You'll fill out some basic information, you know, across the top here, your name, your cap ID, who are you with, what is the airframe that you're flying, what are you doing the check ride for? Are you just going to do it as a demonstration pilot for, you know, cadet operations, or are you actually going to be doing a checkout on rotary wing, fixed wing, and are you doing it to become an instructor pilot or check airman? Right, so it's basic information at the top. As we drill into the details on it, now you'll see some of the things that we're testing. And I'm not going to go this in detail, but you see, we'll review what you took in your written exam. What did you get right? What did you get wrong? We'll review the 70-1U. That's the regulation we just stepped through really quickly. Make sure you understand some of the limitations and requirements that are published. We'll talk about the flight release procedures. In fact, you'll have to go through a flight release procedure for your check ride. Are you familiar with WMIRS? WMIRS is the Web Mission Information Reporting System that we use online for the entry of all of these sorties that we fly. And the ORM requirements. ORM is the Operational Risk Management. It's a whole sheet that you'll fill out to gauge the risk and the mitigating factors of any risks that you have for your flight. And we'll make sure you have an understanding of that. We'll make sure that you do your pre-flight preparations correctly. And there's a checklist that we recommend you use, or if you have one published from the manufacturer of the drone that you're going to be flying. We'd like to see you run the checklist. It's a requirement. It's a failure if you actually don't run the checklist on the check ride. We'll want to make sure that you know how to get a flight release. That's the LAANC system, LAANC. I think that's the launch authorization and notification system. You'll need to know how to use that because you will, if you need to fly in controlled airspace, you'll need to get an automated release from air traffic control. And then we get into the ground operations. You know, can you safely, start the aircraft? You know how to safely move it around? Can you provide a crew briefing? And then we get into the actual launch of the aircraft. Can you do normal takeoffs? Can you do crosswind takeoffs for fixed wing? And are you safety aware during all of those maneuvers? And then we'll actually get into the maneuvers pieces where you'll do straight, and you can demo to your instructor pilot that, your check airman, that you can do straight and level flight with the airframe that you're flying, that you can fly a square pattern, that you can orbit a point of interest, and that you can land safely, and that you can do recovery from unusual flight attitudes or a lost aircraft or a lost link to your aircraft. We'll even have you demonstrate how quickly can you get it on the ground if there were smoke coming out of your battery. So you can see that it goes through some really basic maneuvers. There's not a lot to it. It looks like a lot on here, but it takes about 20 to 25 minutes to go through the actual flight operations. And there's a little more work when we're going through the oral piece of it, evaluating your knowledge and understanding of rules and regulations. But that's it. That's kind of what a Form 5 form looks like, and that's what you're going to have to do for your check ride. Again, whether you're doing it as a demo pilot, to fly with our cadets, or you want to become a mission pilot. That's the sign-offs on the form. That's the rules and regs. So here's a little slide that was put together to demonstrate the maneuvers that you have to do for Form 5. So if you want to get involved in our program and you say, I want to do a Form 5, here's what you should be practicing with your little, again, even if you don't have an autonomous drone, just those little $20 ones that you can buy off of Amazon. Those are great to learn with. In fact, they build better skills than somebody who goes off and buys a fully autonomous GPS and gyro stabilized airframe. Anybody that buys those little ones, I can always tell that they have some really good skills because they can get those things to hover very stably. But that's what we want to see in the check ride. So you'll see In item number 1, we want to show that you can do a safe takeoff, and we'll immediately have you go to a stable hover, both autonomously and without automation if your drone can do it. Then we'll put out some cones, and you can practice this in your backyards, as long as your airspace in your backyard allows for it, or a park. Go somewhere where you have a lot of room where you can safely fly your drone, and set out some cones. And just make sure you can take your drone after you get it in the hover position, fly out to the safety cone, and then fly back again. That's the first maneuver. Well, the second maneuver that we'll ask you to do. The third maneuver is what we call the four corners, or the simple four corners, and that is, again, the cone's out in a square shape. Fly your drone, launch your drone, fly it out to one cone, and without turning the nose of the airframe to the next cone, just slew, what I call slewing, meaning just use your, in the case of a quadcopter or a rotary wing, just use your right control stick to slew the aircraft without yawing it, meaning point the nose to the next cone, and just go over each consecutive cone and then return and land. Very simple maneuver. The other one is the same maneuver, but now we call it yaw the four corners. So with the cones in that square pattern, you're going to fly to each one. However, the difference is when you get over the top of each cone, before you go to the next one, you're going to turn the nose of the aircraft. So you're going to use your left joystick on the controller to yaw or point the nose of the airframe to the next cone, and then fly to it, stop at it, and then yaw to the next one and fly to the next one. We see some people that don't have a lot of drone experience struggle with that. So if you don't have a lot of drone experience, practice this, and then you'll be ready for the next step, which is the field circle, or orbiting a point of interest. And this is the one where we see people struggle the most. However, if you're good at this one and good at all the others, you're probably going to pass your Form 5U check ride. And that is that you put the cones out in a circular pattern, or what I do is I throw out a cone out in the middle, and I will have the examinee hover at about 10 feet off the ground and about 20 feet away from the cone and orbit it in a circle, right? But keep the nose or the camera of the airframe pointed at the center cone. So you can see now you have to slew the aircraft around in a circle around the point of interest, and at the same time yaw or point the aircraft nose or camera towards the center of that orbit or the point of interest. Okay, practice those, and if you get that nailed, you'll be good for the check ride. So that's the Form 5U. There's also kind of like an assistant role, an sUAS technician rating that we have available. And by the way, all of these ratings are available right now in e-services. So this is all stuff that you can all be working on right now with your emergency services crews within your local units. Again, for those of you non-members, if you're just listening, I know a lot of this doesn't make sense to you, but all this means is that when you join locally, you have resources that can help you get started on these qualifications. At any rate, we're talking about an sUAS technician. Here's the form or the worksheet of all the tasks that you need to complete. And again, this is more like an assistant role to the pilot or to the ground crew to assist with all the tasks. And you'll see some knowledge that you have to have here about demonstrate, how the aircraft works, demonstrate the coordination of the ground crew. What is an ELT, an emergency locator transmitter? How are they detected? How do you transfer images on the computer? Some basic tasks that you have to do in order to be able to assist with our drone operations. And then down at the bottom, those of you familiar with the Squitter worksheets already know that there's some FEMA requirements where you have to complete the IS 100, 200, 700, and a couple new ones are the 800, the 5, and the 3 for radiological concerns and hazmats. Those are new in addition to what some of our traditional manned aircraft crews have to do. The 800 through the IS-3 are all new, so don't let that be a surprise to you. But anyway, here's a whole list, and again, you can download this off the website to see what are the requirements that you have to have in order to become an sUAS technician. And the same here. Here's the specialty qualification training worksheet, or what I call the Squitter, for the mission pilot. Again, now it goes a little more advanced, although you'll see some duplicative tasks that you have to do in order to become a mission pilot. And the mission pilot training is primarily to do some imagery work. How do you create a photo ortho mosaic image to deliver that super high res 3D relief image to FEMA, our climate if you're doing like a disaster recovery mission. And we'll provide the training for all of these as well. So again, this is just a checklist of all those things you have to complete in order to become a mission pilot within the program. Again, notice here for that FEMA training, nothing additional here. So if you do all of this for the technician, you'll automatically get it for the mission pilot as well. The other thing I want to call about on this last page, and this is true of the technician as well, for these qualifications, notice that you have to do 3 sorties. You actually must fly 5 different sorties in order to get these qualifications. So whereas traditionally we have 2 on the sUAS side, now it's 5 requirements. Again, because the flights are so short, that's why we want you to have more of those. Then this is when you're actually doing your check ride for the Form 91, very similar to the Form 5 view. This is what you'll be working through with your examiner. We don't need to go through that right now. And again, I see questions coming in, so we'll get to those in just a sec. So now let's get to the fun stuff. And this is a presentation that came to us by way of National Headquarters back in August last year by Austin, who is the National Senior Program Manager for Unmanned Aerial Systems for Civil Air Patrol at large. This is his presentation. It's going to talk you through a little bit of the cadet involvement, how we use them for aerospace, emergency services, and a very exciting program that we have called the Counter sUAS program. So let's step through this. The first bullet point here is that cadets can absolutely participate in this program. As already mentioned, you have to be 16 years old or older to become a mission pilot because you need that Part 107. But if you're just flying recreationally or for demo purposes, you can be under 16. But we want cadets in the program, and every cadet right now can become an sUAS technician, meaning the assistants or visual observers in the commercial remote pilot vernacular. All of you can start working on your sUAS technician ratings right now. And then you'll see that red item here where it says cadets may not participate in the red cell mission. That's that Counter sUAS program that I'm going to talk about just a little bit on some of these slides. So cadets, just know that you can't participate in that until you turn 18. There's STEM kits available, so I think most everybody knows that through our science, technology, and engineering math program within CAP, there's some quadcopter airframes that you can request for free for your units, and your cadets can build those as an experience. But know that in the official program for Form 5 check rides and for mission work, we're not using any STEM kits, right? So they're available for you for training, but that's not what we use for search and rescue platforms. We only use commercial off-the-shelf platforms for those. We're gonna skip that. So what are we using them for? Well, we use the sUAS for disaster relief, and that could be live video streaming of an incident for awareness and assessment back to the incident command post. We use them to create very high level imagery, whether it's directly overhead or oblique, meaning at like a 45-degree angle looking at a point of interest. We create those geo-referenced orthomosaic images. You're probably familiar with that by using Google Earth. If you use Google Earth and you zoom into an area by GPS coordinates and you can see what it looked like, just a couple months ago, we're doing the same thing. We actually geo-reference our images and stitch them together from a composite of many images. We're also using them for search and rescue. That would be visual searches. I gave the example of a missing toddler. We'll launch a drone and go look using thermal imaging to go find the signature of them out in a wooded area. We also have some homeland security missions where, again, we can create some 3D imagery to model some infrastructure. And if you attended any of the conferences that National Headquarters did just a couple months ago, you'll saw reference to that as well. And then we have the Counter sUAS program that I mentioned as well. There's an example of a geo-referenced orthomosaic image. You'll see it's a composite of many different images, many high-resolution images, all stitched together and GPS geo-referenced. And we'll deliver that to FEMA so they can zoom in and get down to 1 pixel per 6 centimeter or better resolution. They get very high resolution. So if you were somebody at FEMA very interested in looking for, I don't know, bodies or missing objects in that debris field, you'd be able to zoom in and get very high resolution detail off of that image. And you as a mission pilot or a technician will be involved in creating those images, and we'll provide that training for you. Here's a couple examples of visual imagery on the left, where you can see overhead of a person in a blue jacket, white hat, And then we have also some drones with thermal imaging available upon request. And that's an example on the right-hand side where, again, those body heat signatures really pop out in a wooded area using that FLIR imagery. We'll skip the future of in the interest of time. We're running a little bit long here, but I do want to cover some airframes that we have available right now. And some of you may already have this hardware at home, and that's great. You'll have a head start on that. But here's some of the airframes that we have available to us, either within the wing or upon request as needed. The Phantom 4 Professional, we can get 25 minutes of flight time, and then of course they include extra batteries. We can get 4K video, 12 megapixel camera. It has some multispectral capabilities as well. We have the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual available. It gives you a little bit more 30-minute flight time, 4K video, 12 megapixel, and it also has IR capabilities at 160 by 120 resolution. Some cool things about that because it also can have a spotlight and a speaker. We have the Instant Eye Mark III. It's the Gen 4 version where, again, we can now drop payloads from it. We have IR capabilities. Now we got 20 megapixel cameras on there. So the other thing is that this is a domestically built aircraft. So now we can start to use this on Air Force missions. The DJI Inspire 2, a little more complex aircraft, but again, high resolution, 20 megapixel, 5.6K camera, and of course it geotags all of those images as well. We have the Skylark Endurance, again, another domestic airframe that we can use on Air Force missions. 40-minute flight time or up to 40-minute flight time. Again, high resolution RGB camera, and also we can put a multispectral imaging camera on it as well. Matrix 210 RTK, 35-minute flight time. Of course, we get GPS accuracy on there up to 2-centimeter accuracy. We got multiple sensors we can load up on it. When including an upward sensor, 20 megapixel camera, 5K video. Now we got optical zoom up to 30x, including additional 6x digital zoom, and a 4K 12 megapixel camera team with another IR infrared camera as well, and a pretty high resolution at that by 640 by 480 IR. So again, that's available to us upon request. So you can see we got multiple airframes going on here. Those are all the rotary wing ones, but we also have fixed wing. So here's an Event 38 E384, 90-minute flight time, 20 megapixel camera, great for covering a lot of ground for long durations. And lastly, I just want to make mention to the other, finish what I referenced to the sUAS counter sUAS program. We do support the armed forces with a counter sUAS program where we go in and pretend that we're the aggressor for them to do detection and thwarting or countermeasures to an invasive sUAS platform in their installation airspace. So again, 18 years and older to become part of that program, but if you want to help secure America and harden our security at bases across the US, that is another way to get involved in the program. I'm gonna skip that because we're running a little bit of time when we get to some of the questions here. Through the slideshow is available online, and we'll be sharing that in the notes. A couple Illinois Wing updates, because I know we have a lot of members from Illinois Wing. We just submitted for, because they expired, instructor pilots and check pilots should be approved this month, and they'll be available for those of you who are ready to take your Form 5U and 91Us. For those of you who took your training earlier this year and you're ready to do those check rides, we should be able to do those this month and after. And then, if after this program you do want to get involved in the program to get checked out to fly and checked out to become a mission pilot, we have classes coming up in February for the Form 5U. That's to get checked out and fly, qualified to fly our airframes in February. It'll be virtual, it's all online. And then we'll do another Form 91U to become a mission pilot training session in March of 2021. Additionally, the dates haven't been set for this just yet, but we'll also host an informational training class for those of you who want to get certified from the FAA to become commercially licensed pilot. We're going to be providing another training class. We hosted one earlier this year. Now we're going to do another one probably after the March timeframe next year. And the other update I have is sitting in my living room in two nice Pelican cases. Illinois Wing has two brand new Sky DO2, that's the drone that you see pictured here. The Enterprise kits, which includes all of this hardware that you see. So we have two Go kits with lots of batteries and a very capable long range, very easy to fly drone that's available to each and every one of you. We'll provide flight training on it and you can do the check rides. If you don't own a drone, we'll provide it for you to get qualified. With that said, and with the help of my moderator, because I have not been keeping track of the questions coming through, and with the time that remains, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for comments, questions. Don't forget to smash that Ask a Question button down at the bottom right. So moderator, I don't know if you had a chance to filter out some of the best questions and you want to read them to me maybe? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Okay, here's a great question. In regards to 7.1.5.1/.2, wow, and the history around federal monies being used for foreign-made sUAS, and with the recent purchase and deployment of the Skydio 2 sUAS we are flying, does your unit already fly and train on the Skydio platform?
So that's a good question, and there's a couple things at play there that I just want to explain to people, and that is that, again, remember, we're only flying commercially off-the-shelf available sUAS platforms for the program. That's to keep us at a good, professionally built and vetted airframe. So we only fly with those. And you'll see that we just got issued one of those by way of that Skydio that you see at the bottom of the screen. We just received those. So we're not currently providing training on it because they just came in the door. However, that said, they are immediately available right now. Now, there's another part of this question that is, well, wait, I already have a commercial off-the-shelf, already available commercial off-the-shelf drone in my possession that I'm flying right now. Can I do my training and my check ride on it? And the answer is yes. If it's a commercially, available off-the-shelf a drone, not something that you cobbled together or heavily modified, you can absolutely do your check ride with it. And in fact, for some of our mission work, you'll be able even to use it for that. The one mission you can't use it for is when we're doing support of the Air Force, like the counter sUAS program. Hopefully that answered the question.
Okay, we're getting short on time, but some of these are quick. Would that tech be part of ES or PD?
So yeah, this entire program, when we talk about mission capabilities, that is part of our emergency services program. So when you go through and read the regulations on the website that I directed you before, you'll see it references a lot of the ES training. And in fact, before you can become mission qualified in either technician or mission pilot, you absolutely have to have completed the emergency services, what is it, the 116 and 117 as well.
Okay, basically we have some questions on getting check rides and scheduling check rides and finding out where to get check rides.
Sure, so it sounds like there's a lot of interest and maybe readiness too for both the training and for the check rides. So I shared with you the contact information for myself in the beginning of the slide, and I'll bring it up here in just a moment again. In fact, I guess go ahead and jump to it. There it is. If you are ready to check your check ride, or we have questions, because again, we went through this material very fast, like a fire hose, please feel free to reach out to me at this contact information, and we will hook you up with somebody in your area that can help provide that training. And again, remember, we have some online training classes coming up. Or if you're ready for your check ride, we'll have 2 check airmen available in the wing starting this month, because they expired and we're just looking for renewal. They should be renewed this month. If you're ready to do those check rides, we'll connect with you and we will assist you through the program. Remember, it's brand new. We're not looking for 100% perfection. We're always looking for safety above and paramount over everything else. So we're pretty generous in how we will apply those check rides. But if you're ready to do them, reach out to me and let's get them scheduled, or let's button up what you might need for training so that you can take your check ride. But for right now, use me as the point of contact for your readiness or questions about all of the above.
Short answer, yes or no. Is there an sUAS pilot badge?
Ooh, excuse me? Good question that I don't know the answer to off the top of my head. I haven't seen reference to it, but I would be surprised if it were coming in, and I just don't know right now, so I apologize.
I think we're running against time.
Sounds good. I heard somebody else in there.
Excuse me. We need to be getting ready for the 3 o'clock. Everybody who's not in the next presentation, please exit. Chad, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, has
you want me to end this one?
Gigi signed in yet? Have you seen or heard from Gigi?
No, I think I got to move to the next session. Yeah, I need to move to the other one.
Okay.